Good minds discuss events. Great minds discuss ideas.
And I'm back. It's an honor to be back with Mike Elias. I said it right this time, I
Elias.
think. Elias.
Yes, sir.
And from Ideamarket and yeah, so at some point, maybe when we get closer to have you launched Yasso yet? Or
No, it's really kind of in the status of a backseat side project that I'm kind of letting
okay.
grow at its own pace and not really
Hmm.
I'm not like trying to be a startup guy. If it happens, it happens, but it's just an idea, and if it grows, it grows.
That's that's kind of like what like me in this and doing. It's more of a thing. Maybe for you, like this is more of a thing of interest, and if other people are interested in it, then it'll grow. If not, it was
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, but I want to, be careful not to try to solve the world's problems as vehemently as I have in the past.
Yeah, I like that. Well, I don't want to solve the world's problems, but I do like discussing ideas. In the intro, I have the clip of. I think I've talked about this, and it's sorry. Stop me if I've said this too many times. But it's Denzel Washington. He's talking about a quote of his father and somebody who quotes somebody else, and it is talking about gossip is talking about other people. Great, good men talk about events, and great men talk about ideas. Now, I think there's a third part to that, and that is that this left out. I think great men talk about ideas, and I want Ramble Source to get to ideas and talk about ideas, but I want to take it a step further and talk about implementation of those ideas.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that, kind of general approach. And it's been, one of the major lessons and struggles of my life to kind of know where the point of diminishing returns is on
Mm,
ideas and on abstractions, and go, you know what, maybe I have philosophized this to death, and what really needs to happen is it needs to change my life or change my heart in some sort of tangible, uh, literal, physical way. Um,
mm,
and I was fortunate to have a girlfriend in my early 20s who kind of hammered that into me. And I
mm.
found it really annoying at the time, but it ended up changing my life. And I'm really glad that I encountered that idea so early.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Well, let's real quick. I forgot at the outset. I always forget at the outset of Ramble Source. I like to give opportunity to people watching and people I'm interviewing to join me in the simultaneous sigh. It's a riff off of Scott Adams' simultaneous sip and uh, uh, David Kimball his first sips. But if you can join me as I take a deep breath, and together maybe we can just take a moment and center, but center on Christ.
Amen.
So I'm
Yeah,
gonna blow out all my breath. What's that? Okay, yeah. So blow out all my breath. Take a deep breath, the largest breath I've ever taken, and release. I think there's a lot to be had from that.
that's
Thank
a
you for
that's a
joining
cool
me.
thing to do over the internet. That's a cool podcast routine. I like that. Thank you.
Well, and now that we've done that, I want to come back to the idea
Sure.
of you said something in there about that was a ex-girlfriend. That what was it that she said exactly? That
Sure.
what was the phrase? What was the thing that you remember now?
Well, we were both very interested in psychology, and I had kind of a philosophical bent. and I was in college and I was taking philosophy classes and I was writing philosophy papers and we would talk about them together. And uh, I still kind of had the impression that if I can intellectually model reality perfectly, that by itself would be like super valuable. So whenever I'd have this new idea or new metaphor for how the world works, I would get really excited and go, I've cracked the code. I have like done everything and I've written it here and anybody can read it and understand and like have their lives improved. And for her, she was a very kind of action oriented person, and she would read what I wrote and say, could you ground that for me? Or like, could you make this more concrete? And like, it's kind of funny because she didn't necessarily say give examples, which would have been a more concrete way of saying, can you make this more concrete? But like, she, repeatedly gave me this impression, it felt at the time like she was saying, this isn't enough. I don't get it. Like your breakthrough isn't as good as you think it is. And she was right about that, but I mostly just felt not appreciated. But what she was really saying was uh, something that I would take a while to understand, which is like nobody cares. You're speaking up like a private philosophy language in your head, and this might mean a lot to you, but uh, if you can't, this what you've done here doesn't translate well across minds. And in order for this to be more useful, it has to have more of a sense of um, action or physical instantiation or something. Like it's not enough to say the world is like a bunch of magnets that stick together in this way and flow together in this way and blah blah blah. Like who cares? Great, you have a metaphor, but and I would have kept doing that. I would have kept doing that forever if I had not had that experience of her kind of continually frustrating my feelings of profound insight. But it led to the founding of Ideamarket, really, because Ideamarket largely was inspired by a dictum of Taleb's. Now, I haven't actually read any of Taleb's books, but I came across this quote of his. He said in Skin in the Game, rationality is risk management. And I kind of went, like that's an excellent metaphor for deciding what to believe and for evaluating knowledge. Because if you bet wrong on what you think is true, you're going to pay for it in some way. And if you bet right, you're going to have some kind of advantage. And rather than just like trying to write a philosophy paper and convince people of this, which I could never do as well as Taleb in the first place, what I wanted to do was build a tool, build a piece of software that built this assumption into the use of it so that as people used it, they would agree with my conclusions without having to like compute them or be, convinced of what they are. So it's kind of a Marshall McLuhan, the medium is the message kind of a thing. It's just kind of largely because of my ex-girlfriend, it occurred to me some years later that mediums are the new philosophy paper. Infrastructure is the new philosophy paper. If you build a thing that people use, then they will tacitly accept your assumptions behind the thing that they are using.
Interesting.
And so, like, yeah.
Well, that was Ideamarket.
Yeah.
And the thing that we talked about last week was the idea of love being the medium for truth, or something like to that
Something
extent.
like that. Yeah.
And you said since then you have had some was it feedback, self-feedback, or was it something, was it a mechanism? Was it this video? Did you go back and watch this video and think or the video we did before where you you had some feedback for yourself. What was there was something that
Sure.
happened between then and now.
Yeah, a couple things happened.
Okay.
One was, I realized that I was kind of doing what I'm talking about here. I was excited by an idea about
Mm,
how love works and its relationship with truth. And
mhm.
it's kind of classically known that love and truth are kind of the same thing in a certain way, but it's not really clear how because they seem so different, and one is of the heart and
Yeah,
one is of the mind. And I've,
yeah.
I've had some new thoughts about how they might actually like interact and overlap and like kind of be, you can kind of feel how they're the same and different in a, deeper way than I had known before. And I
Mm,
was excited about that idea, and I was trying to explain that idea,
yeah.
but I think I wasn't clear enough that as a practitioner, I am still very much a beginner. And this last week, I have been reminded of that by my own failures
Mm.
to love and the stupidity that has resulted from my failures to love is illustrative, ironically, of the point that I was making in the abstract.
So it really reinforced what you said rather than detracted from it.
It made me look like a fool while in a certain way, while also confirming the thesis in another way. Yes.
Okay, I love it when that happens. Okay, well, can you say more about that?
Yeah,
Like what?
absolutely. So, um, one of the ways that what I was trying to say yesterday or last week is that love is kind of an epistemology of itself. To love a thing is a way of knowing it. If you love something first before you understand it or know it, it will change how you
Mhm,
perceive that thing for the better. You will perceive a thing that you love more accurately than a thing that you disdain or a thing that seems foreign or
mhm.
detached. Um, and one of the ways I've experienced this is in my relationship with my wife. I'm, as a nerd, I tend to operate on like intellectual principles. Like, do I be honest or do I protect her feelings? And it seems like these are two independent principles that I have to like impossibly reconcile. And often
Mhm.
what happens is I'll get stuck in this dichotomy and either be paralyzed and unable to move or do something really dumb or do something that I regret. And
Okay.
here's where love comes in.
Okay.
When I forget about figuring out the right algorithm, if X do truth, if Y do love and compassion or something like that, if I forget
Flow
about
chart.
figuring it
Yeah.
out, if I forget about
Yeah.
doing it up here, and if I go down to my heart, I turn off the brain and I just love my wife, what will happen is the right thing to do, which like if this is 0 and this is 1, the heart will just give me 0.7892532, and like it'll give me a precise right thing to do and say to strike the perfect balance between these two seemingly irreconcilable things, and then I'll do that and things will work well. But it only happens when I turn off my brain and love her, and then something
Mm.
mysteriously presents
Mhm.
itself to me. So there's this way in which love by itself is a way of knowing things that are unknowable otherwise. And that's what I'm really
That's
excited about. And
fascinating.
that's what I was trying to say
Yeah.
the other time.
That I love that. That is fascinating. Its own little mechanism that brings data without engaging the intellect. Is that sort of?
Yes. Yeah. It's sort of
It's like heart data.
yeah, it's another faculty of knowledge. It is a non-intellectual faculty of knowledge. And I believe it's superior. I believe it's very superior to the
Mm.
rational mind, that sort of heart information. Um, and I kind
Well,
of, yeah, go ahead.
here's one thing that sort of not bothers me, but so that there's a nagging thought as you're talking about this for me, and that is that I've always come at it from the opposite direction. That the more we know someone, the more we love them, uh, and know less, and maybe as I think about it, gets more into your point, and is might be less of a data knowledge, it might be less of an intellectual knowledge and more of a relational knowledge. And because as I'm trying to visualize what you're talking about, the part where I'm darkest or have a hard time understanding is, what does it mean to turn on the love button? It's like, it, I like what you're saying all the way up until I guess I just don't know what it means to. I think I know what it means to turn off your brain and love,
Yeah,
but maybe I
right.
need more. I need more information there.
Sure, sure. As a nerd, it has been my inclination to solve problems by figuring them out. Like you
Mm,
model the thing up here, you take all your information, you calculate a thing, and then you execute it down here. There's like this
mm,
separation between the blueprint and the activity and the world. And I think a lot of intellectuals kind of instinctively feel that way or instinctively do that. And I've
yeah.
been learning that when I rely less on this,
Mhm,
or decide to switch gears and go, it's kind of there's kind of a trust fall involved. I kind of have to go. I have to I have to I have to admit to myself that I am not smart enough for this. This thing up here doesn't work on this problem. I have to switch gears, and I realize I'm not being any extra clear, but let me see if I can be. That it's an act of will. It's a
mm,
decision. I'm not thinking I'm gonna. I have a plan. The plan involves love. I'm gonna execute. It's not an intellectual thing. It's an act of will. It's a decision, and it's an exertion. Kind of like if you're
mm,
lifting something heavy, to go, um, to go. Ignore this for now. Just ignore it, and
mhm,
almost as if going from thinking about a math problem to listening to music or appreciating a painting. You just engage this
mm,
other faculty, that is
mhm.
more that is love, that is appreciation and a desire for the good, the benefit of the other.
Yeah,
And I think that's the clearest line to that's been helpful and to draw in my own experience is what these different faculties feel like. I know what it feels like to figure something out, and I know what
mhm,
it feels like to appreciate a painting or tune into the rhythm of a song and get lost in that. Like these
yeah,
are totally different ways of perceiving, and that's what I'm saying has been revelatory for me lately is that relying less on the calculator up here and the philosophy up here and more on this other faculty of loving
yeah.
actually provides a different quality of knowledge, but only after engaging that faculty. It doesn't come from the mind. It might land in the mind, but
Yeah.
it's not manufactured up here. It comes in through these other sorts of senses.
Well, and I think in the moment, if I get okay, so let me take a jab, not a jab, but let me try to understand this in the way it's going through my mind, because I've talked about this, but from a different perspective, and that is humans' abilities, the human ability to do things they don't know every step of it. So playing guitar is I think would be a good one to talk about with you, but also I don't know if you do sports, but in sports it's often the case. I think of bowling too, bowling and golf swings. The less you think about it, because thinking about every step would take just way too much thought, and the
Yeah,
energy needs to be spent in the muscle memory, in the imagination. Actually, I believe wholeheartedly in the power of imagination for sports and music, playing music instruments. And I wonder if that's where sort of the Venn diagram comes together here, and what we're talking about is that there is an aspect of just do it. I think of Shia LaBeouf, just do it. Just
Yeah.
you just you you just engage. I think the important thing you said is you turn off the brain. That is an important thing. Is don't
Right.
try to think about it. Don't think about
Yeah.
it. Do it. And I think that our body knows way more about these things than we think it does.
Yeah.
And I do believe there is some preparation that we can do as we think about maybe. So I used to love philosophy, thought I loved philosophy, and I went into psychology because I found that psychology was a way to deal with ideas and philosophy that had a practical application. And one of the things that came out of that I didn't get in philosophy was this idea of fake it till you make it. It really a much more action oriented, and I think that's what we're talking about a little bit. But I wonder if there is a little fake it till you make it. I heard somebody talk about, I don't remember who it was, but talk about if you are having a trouble loving your spouse, think about, and this is maybe the preparation thing, think about how you would act if you did love them. How would things be different if you did love them? And Jordan Peterson talks about, think of, if you really want to improve and take care of yourself, think about how you would take care of a young person and put yourself in that place. How would you take care of that person and do that with yourself? And is that kind of getting at, is that in the realm of what you're talking about as far, but like much more in a moment?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely related. I think that might be a little harder for like the epistemology use case. I'm sorry to go back into the mind and use big words right now. That's not what I mean to
No,
do.
that's good. It's
But
fine. Yeah.
yeah, that's definitely in there, and that's something that I've been reading in the Catholic tradition, which I'm a part of, about the saints and many other people going through dry spells and not feeling the love of God and not feeling their
Mm,
usual enthusiasm. And the advice in every circumstance is continue to not sin and continue as you were, even though it doesn't bring you the same kind of joy and comfort that it usually does, because what that's doing is it's purifying your motives. You're not doing
mm,
it for the happy feelings anymore, you're just doing it for God. And so
mm,
I would suspect strongly that the same phenomenon happens in loving anybody in any kind of
mhm,
relationship, where maybe you don't feel like the joy of your altruism or whatever, but you have an opportunity in that moment to act on it anyway, and it actually does, deepen it, and the fruits of that do bear fruit in you, and eventually it does
mm,
come around, and you have a different heart. And one of the most famous stories of this recently is that Mother Teresa, for 40 years, was in one of these dry spells. And she was doing all her work in India without feeling like joyous about it. She was just grinding
mm.
and and you know being
Wow.
being of this immense service, just knowing that it was real even if she didn't feel it. And that's a lesson that I've always struggled to learn, and hopefully we'll get better
Hmm.
at.
What's the what's the difference though between that and white knuckling it? Because
Yeah.
I don't.
Um,
There's something that always being
yeah,
opposed
you're
to white
right.
knuckling it.
Yeah, totally. Um, I'm probably not qualified to speak on that. That's a distinction that I'm struggling to make too. I think white
Hmm.
knuckling it, uh, I would bet that the motivations are different. I think when you have like, I think white knuckling it is less sustainable because it comes from a less pure motivation, a less a less beautiful motivation. Like white knuckling, it might be a sort of impatience or arrogance or something kind of a weak short-term motivator like that, and so you burn out
Yeah.
quickly compared to Mother Teresa, who really did love God, but just was feeling dry. But her motivation was loving God, and that's a really strong motivator that could sustain her. So that would be my suspicion, but I haven't really been through this ringer too much, and I can't really speak with expertise.
I think that is something I'd like to look into more, because I think, to your point, the motivation, white knuckling it to me is that, what is it's that Yoda, do not try, or there is no
Right,
try, do or do not.
right. I'm
Uh,
letting the cat out. I'm letting the cat out of the room. Hang
Go
on.
ahead, go ahead. Oops, sorry. Let's see. So
I'm
I
right
think
here.
that
I'm right here. I'm right here.
okay, you're back. You're
I'm right
back.
here.
You're back.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I think maybe that it is that Yoda saying, do or do not. There is no try. I feel
Right.
like white knuckling it is just trying, and
Exactly. Exactly.
maybe it's like she didn't feel it in the moment, but she felt called, and she
Yeah.
felt motivated by her love of Jesus. Maybe not
Yeah.
love of what she was doing, but love of Jesus. Whereas white knuckling is just trying, whatever that is.
Exactly.
It's like,
Yeah. Yeah. And like if there's you know one way I would want to summarize the challenge that I'm seeing here is everybody has heard things like that Yoda saying, do or do not, there is
mm,
no try. And everybody has
mm,
heard um, turn off your brain and just do it.
mm,
But the challenge as I see it right now is, what do you replace that instruction with? What is all right, we know don't try. We know
mm.
don't use your brain. But what is the instruction to replace those things with, so that people aren't just reckless and insane and white knuckling it? Because that's the automatic thing that we do. Anytime you tell
Yeah.
someone awkward to act natural, they do something stupid and insane. But there is a thing that we're pointing out that's real. And so I think the more clearly that can be described, the better it can get. And I do feel obligated to promote Michael Ashcroft's Alexander Technique course, because that's
Mm,
his project. His project has basically been giving people ways in to the experience
mm.
of non-trying. And I bought it a year or so ago, and I have still not made my way through the whole thing, because every time I do a section of it, I ponder it for 2 weeks. And so, yeah,
What
I
now?
just
What
I
is
just
it?
wanted to say
It's
that.
called, what is it called? The what?
It's called the Alexander Technique, and he does also reference like the tennis inner game of tennis book that I think you were kind of uh,
Mm-hmm.
the Galway thing. So anyway, it's right on this topic of what to do when you're not trying, and what to do when you turn off your
Interesting.
brain. And it's not exactly the same thing I'm talking about with love as epistemology, but it's close.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, I think we're honing in on something. I appreciate you coming on and uncovering this, man, because this is something huge and interesting to whether or not it's huge or not. I think it is. It's very interesting to me,
I'm
and
really glad.
appreciate it.
I'm really glad.
Well, that's pretty much our time, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to. What are you working on right now? Are you working on anything in particular that you want to invite people to?
Sure. I'm working on writing some original music, and I've just kind of
Yeah.
collected a bunch of different projects uh, onto my website, which is harmonylion.com. That's my personal website where I just kind of collect things. And
Hmm.
my main project right now is music, and I've been writing a lot of Catholic rock songs, writing songs about saints and theology and stuff. But I
Cool.
want it to be good rock and roll first, and not be like Christian rock. Like I want it
Yeah,
to be good music first. And so please
that's good.
check it out and let me know if I've achieved that at all. And
Did I spell it
that
right?
would make me very
H-A-R?
happy. Yeah, that's exactly
Yeah,
right.
okay. All
Yeah.
right. Yeah, check them out at harmonylion.com. I'll check it out too.
Thank
And
you.
appreciate you, man. And hopefully we can talk again next week. We'll see. But if you're available.
I like the schedule. This time slot does kind of work. So yeah, let's do it.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much. And this was fun. Hope
Thank you, Judah.
to get deeper next time.
All
Even
right,
deeper.
looking forward to it.
All right. Thanks, brother.
Bye bye.